Hi and welcome to another story, and today we have part 4 of Bad Girls by Jacqueline Wilson, continuing from page 83, Blue. Tanya brushed out my hair when we got back to my house and fixed the green velvet band into place. It's called a scrunchie, said Tanya. There, looks great, eh? Yeah, great, thank you ever so much, Tanya, I said. I love my scrunchie. My tummy felt as if it was all scrunched up too. It was so lovely of Tanya to give it to me. She was the best friend in all the world, but she'd stolen it. Well, I didn't know that for certain. It looked as if she'd snatched it straight off the shelf, but I hadn't been able to see properly. She might have paid for it with money in her pocket. I could ask her straight out, but I didn't dare. It would sound so awful. Thanks for my present, Tanya. By the way, did you pay for it or did you steal it? And if she had stolen it, then what? I knew it was wrong to steal things, especially from people like Mr. and Mrs. Patel, who didn't make very much money out of their corner shop, although it was only a hairband. A little velvet scrunchy hairband that only cost £1 or two. It wasn't as if it was really valuable. Tanya hadn't stolen it for herself. She'd stolen it for me because I was her friend, and she didn't have any spare cash of her own. She didn't get proper pocket money every Saturday like me. She had hardly anything at all, so it wasn't really too awful for her to take it, was it? I felt dizzy with all these conflicting thoughts buzzing around in my head. The scrunchie held my hair up tightly, pulling the little hairs at the nape of my neck. Every time I turned my head, it gave me a painful little tweak, so that I couldn't forget about it. It was almost a relief when Mum made me brush my hair back into its old style after Tanya had gone over the road. I know you think you look wonderful, Mandy, said Mum, snorting, but I don't think that style really suits you. I think she looks very grown up, said Dad, seeing me drooping. Mum frowned. That's just the point. Mandy's still a little girl. That style's much too sophisticated, and a bit common, if you must know. Still, it was very kind of Tanya to give Mandy that hair thingy, said Dad. Said Mum. Did she buy it for you specially, Mandy? Yes, I mumbled. I pretended to yawn. I'm ever so sleepy. I think I'll go to bed. I just wanted to get away from Mum and Dad, but I couldn't get to sleep. I lay awake, fingering the scrunchie. I didn't know if you could buy them everywhere, or just in the corner shop. What if it was a special one, and Mrs. Patel realised one was missing from her shelf? What if she'd even seen Tanya take it? What if she saw me wearing the green velvet scrunchie? Did that make me a thief, because I knew it was stolen? When I eventually got to sleep, I dreamt about it. Mrs. Patel stopped me in the street and called me a thief. Mr. Patel came out of the shop and he called me a thief too. Everyone in the street started staring. There were people from school there. Mrs. Stanley and Mrs. Edwards shaking their heads and looking very stern. Kim and Melanie and Sarah were standing in a row chanting, "Thief! Thief! Thief!" their teeth gleaming. And Mum and Dad were there, and they were saying it too, and they were crying, and I was crying too. I woke up in a sweat, still hearing the word thief ringing in my ears. It was the middle of the night now, and the dark made it even more scary. I got up and shoved the scrunchie right at the back of my underwear drawer. Then I lay down again and tried hard to play a pretend game. I was Miranda Rainbow, and she never lay awake in blue funk at nights. She slept soundly in her rainbow sheets, a different colour for every day, and then she got up and had a soak in her jacuzzi, and then she got dressed in... I tried on various imaginary outfits, as if I was a paper doll, and eventually fell asleep again. I stayed being Miranda Rainbow in my dream, and I was still trying on different clothes, because I was a famous fashion model now, and I strode up and down the catwalk, while the cameras flashed and everything seemed wonderful. But then I had to put on this new outfit, a green velvet tight dress, with a big matching hairband, a huge scrunchie almost like a pull-on hat, and everyone saw me wearing it and suddenly stood up and started yelling, "Thief!" And I tried to take the scrunchie off, but it was too tight. It was tied so tightly round my head I could hardly breathe. It was right over my eyes and blocking my nose and gagging my mouth so that I couldn't even scream. I woke up gasping and sobbing, stuck right down under the bedclothes. I must have made a noise after all because Mum came running. "Whatever's the matter, darling?" I just had a horrid dream," I said, wiping my face with the sheet. "Hey, don't do that. Let's find you a hanky, you poor little poppet," said Mum, cuddling me close. "What was this horrid dream about, eh?" "I can't remember," I lied, clinging to Mum, "but it was just so scary." "There, Mummy's here now," said Mum, rocking me. She tucked me right tight up with Olivia Orangutan and promised me I'd go straight back to sleep and I wouldn't have any more bad dreams. I tried to believe her, but it didn't work out that way. I was still awake when Dad's alarm went off in the morning. I felt horrible and headachy at breakfast. "You and your nightmares," said Mum. "Poor old Mandy." She pulled my plaits fondly. "Where's the trendy new hairstyle?" said Dad. Mum frowned at him. "I think Mandy's seen sense. It's not really suitable." Mum folded her arms. "I'm not too sure about this friendship with Tanya, you know. Mandy started seeing such a lot of her. She's much too old for Mandy. She's a bad influence." What do you mean?" I asked hoarsely. Well, you're starting to act really cheeky at times, Mandy. All that business after school yesterday. I hate the idea of you going to that park with Tanya. Nowhere's safe nowadays. I think young Tanya can look after herself. And our Mandy, said Dad. I'm still not at all keen on them being so friendly. I don't mind Mandy having Tanya over here when I can keep an eye on things, but I don't want them going off together and getting into mischief, said Mum. It's a bit of a risk. A girl with Tanya's background. I've a good mind to stop Mandy seeing her altogether. I stiffened. No. Oh, come on, said Dad. The girls are good friends. It's great to see Mandy having a bit of fun, and she needs a friend right now, especially after all this bullying business at school. That sidetracked Mum. Has all that stopped now, Mandy? She asked. Kim doesn't say nasty things to you now. She doesn't say anything now, I said. Well, you keep well out of their way, said Mum. I did my best. They didn't hang around near me and whisper things that morning. It looked as if Tanya had scared them off. She'd been so great to stand up to them like that. She was a truly wonderful friend, and she'd only taken that green hairband as a special present for me. I'd been silly to get so worked up about it. Why did I have to be such a goody-goody baby all the time? I sat next to Arthur King at lunchtime, and then afterwards he tried to teach me how to play chess. It got ever so boring. I wanted to let my mind wander and think about Tanya meeting me from school, and how we were going to be friends forever and ever. No, look, if you put your queen there, I'll be able to take it with my knights, said Arthur. I couldn't get worked up about it. The queen didn't have long hair and a flowing dress. The knight didn't have shining armour and a plume in his helmet. They were just twirly pieces of plastic with no personality whatsoever. Arthur beat me so easily at chess that it wasn't even fun for him. Don't you like chess, Mandy? He said, setting up the pieces again. Not really, no, I said. Maybe you'll like it when you get better at it, said Arthur. I was kind of hoping we could play every lunchtime. I said vaguely. And if you're with me, then Kim and Melanie and Sarah will keep away, said Arthur. You what? I think I've scared them off, said Arthur. They won't do anything if I'm here to look after you. Oh, Arthur, I said, too amazed to be tactful. He was the cleverest boy in our class, but he was also the dimmest too. That's nothing to do with you, it's because of my friend Tanya. Arthur looked wounded. How can it be this Tanya friend of yours? She's not here, though it sometimes feels as though she is. What do you mean? Well, you just keep yapping about her. My friend Tanya says this, my friend Tanya says that, on and on. And it isn't even as if she ever says anything that sounds remotely interesting. It's all makeup and clothes and what the stars say and that rubbish. Are you saying my friend Tanya talks rubbish? I said indignantly. I don't know. I've never talked to her myself. But you just talk rubbish now, when you yak about her. Well, you can play your silly chess games by yourself then, I said. And I slammed down the pocket set with such force that all the remaining pieces jumped out of their holes and bounced on the black and white squares. I stalked off by myself, though I knew it was a mistake. I wandered the playground for a bit and then I went to the girls' toilets. That was the biggest mistake of all. Kim and Sarah and Melanie were standing in front of the mirror, combing their hair, experimenting with new styles. Kim was brushing her black fringe back, exposing her startlingly white forehead. She caught my eye in the mirror and stopped brushing. Her hand froze in mid-air. Her fringe slowly flicked forward, strand by strand, until it was back in place. I should have run for it, but I tried to make out I wasn't afraid. I marched straight past and went into one of the toilets and slammed the door. Then I sat on the loo, my heart thumping crazily. There's that girl we don't talk to, said Kim. We don't even say her name, do we? That's right. It's a stupid name anyway, said Sarah. Well, she's a stupid girl, said Melanie, giggling. And she's a sneaky telltale. She went blabbing to her mum, and then she gets on to my mum, and I get into trouble. My mum keeps trying to make me be friends with her again. Yuck! Friends with her, said Sarah. That girl's got a new friend now, though, said Kim silkily. A friend who thinks she's it. Well, she's it, all right, if it equals filthy slag. That unstopped my mouth. Don't you dare call my friend Tanya a slag, I shouted from inside the toilet. They all burst out laughing. Did you see the colour of the filthy slag's hair? Bright orange, like she's got a heap of dead goldfish sticking out of her head, said Kim. They laughed out harder. And those high heels she had on, wibble, wobble. I heard the three of them stomping about in crude imitation. It's a wonder that girl's mumsy lets her go around with that filthy... said Melanie. Well, they're all mumsies together, aren't they? The filthy slag and her little baby slaggling in its pram, said Kim. You're talking rubbish, I shouted, unlocking the toilet door and charging out to confront them. That baby isn't Tanya's. She just helps look after it. And she's not a slag. She doesn't even go with boys. She can't stick them. So shut up, all of you. I tried to sound fierce, but my voice was too high and my eyes were full of tears. Several spilled over and dribbled down my cheeks. They all saw. Can you hear a little gnat squeaking, said Kim. What, that little flea that's just come out the toilet, said Sarah. She's a dirty little flea. She didn't even pull the chain, said Melanie. I hadn't even used the toilet, but they all pulled faces, and Kim held her nose. I did run then, crying, and they laughed a lot more. I kept wanting to cry all afternoon at school. I peered desperately across the room at Arthur, but he wouldn't look at me. I scribbled a little note. Dear Arthur, I'm sorry, I was a silly pig. Mandy. P.S. I hope none of your chess pieces are missing. I folded it up and printed Arthur King on the front. I tried to lean past Melanie to get the girl the other side of her to pass it to Arthur. Melanie was too quick. She snatched the note and opened it up and read it. Then she passed it to Kim and Sarah. They were all grinning like anything. Kim wrinkled up her nose and made little snorty pig noises, pointing at me. Melanie and Sarah copied her. I bent my head over my English exercises. I pressed on my pen so hard I broke the nib, and I had to carry on with a blotchy ballpoint. A big tear splashed onto the page, making the ink blur. There was another tear, and another, until my page was like a puddle. I felt I was drowning in my own deep blue sea. Kim and Melanie and Sarah snorted and sniggered back in the shallows. Who's making that stupid snorting noise? Said Mrs. Stanley impatiently. She looked around at us. I hunched up, scared. She'd see my watery eyes. My nose was watery too, and I had to blow it. It's only Mandy, Mrs. Stanley, blowing her nose, said Kim. Melanie and Sarah laughed. Some of the others joined in too. Don't be so silly, said Mrs. Stanley, sighing. I think I'd better sober you all up. Get out your rough books. We'll have a little spelling test. There was a terrible groan. Most of the class looked at me as if it was somehow my fault. Mrs. Stanley called out the words. They looked wrong no matter which way round I put the letters. We had to swap our papers with our next-door neighbour for marking. Melanie. We had to stay work partners, even though she'd stopped being my friend and become my second worst enemy. Mrs. Stanley wasn't the sort of teacher who would ever let you swap seats. So I had to give my spelling paper to Melanie, and I had to take hers. She just held the very edge of my paper as if it was all dirty and germy, and she threw it quickly down on her desk. Kim and Sarah giggled appreciatively. I only got 12 out of 20. Melanie ringed all my mistakes with red pen and made giant crosses. It was my worst ever test. Melanie got 14. Kim got 18. She came top. She even beat Arthur. We had to read out our marks to Mrs. Stanley. She looked very surprised when I mumbled mine. I thought she might get a bit cross, but she didn't say anything. Then she called me to her desk when the bell rang. Is anything the matter, Mandy? She said. I shook my head and stared at the floor. What happened with your spelling test, Melanie did mark it properly, didn't she? I nodded. Are Melanie and Kim and Sarah still saying things about you, silly things? No, Mrs. Stanley, I said. Well, they weren't saying them to me, just about me. But now they didn't say my name. I couldn't prove it was me they were talking about. Kim was so clever. Mrs. Stanley didn't look as if she believed me, 100%. But she sighed and said I could go. Mum was waiting outside, starting to get anxious. But there was no sign of Tanya. There you are, Mandy. Why are you so late, darling? The others all came out a good 5 minutes ago. You didn't get kept in, did you? No, it was just... Mrs. Stanley was just saying... Oh, it doesn't matter. Mum, where's Tanya? What was Mrs. Stanley saying? Never mind Tanya. Just about spelling. Boring, boring spelling. I thought Tanya was coming to meet me again. She said she was last night. But you're excellent at spelling. You always learn your words perfectly. Look, I thought it would be nice if you and I went into town and did a bit of shopping. I was in Maxwell's and they've got some lovely pink gingham frocks with smocking on the front. Yuck! Don't talk like that, Mandy. I hate that expression. But I can't go shopping, Mum. I promised I'd see Tanya. Yes, and I told Tanya that you and I were going shopping. Ooh, but I'd much sooner see Tanya, I said. Mum's head jerked, as if I'd slapped her face. My tummy went all squelchy. It wasn't fair. Any girl would sooner have fun with her friend than trail around the shops with her mum. Oh, well, if you really don't want to, then I suppose I can't force you, Mum said shakily. But you do need some new summer frocks, and we haven't had a little jaunt after school for a long time. I thought we'd maybe treat you to an ice cream at the soda fountain. Couldn't you have asked Tanya to come along too, I said. Mum took a deep breath. Her nostrils pinched. I don't really think that would be a good idea, Mandy, said Mum. You've been seeing more than enough of that Tanya recently. Goodness gracious, she's hanging around every day now. The two of you shut up in that bedroom. Daddy and I hardly ever get to see you. That's not true. And anyway, look, I don't want a silly argument, Mandy. Are we going to go shopping and have a lovely time or not? We went shopping, but we didn't have a lovely time. I absolutely hated the pink dresses in Maxwell's. They were so little girly, it just wasn't true. The size was fitted for me. That fitted me was for an 8-year-old anyway. I looked 8 in it. No, younger. But you look lovely, darling, said Mum, down on her knees in the changing room, tweaking the hem and trying the dinky bow at the back. We could get you pink and white ribbons to match to wear on your plaits. Yuck! Mandy, how many more times do I have to tell you? Well, it is a yucky idea, Mum. I don't want to have my hair in plaits any more. They look stupid. Even Dad thinks so. And I look stupid in this silly baby frock. I think you're the one acting like a silly baby, said Mum. Well, all right. You don't have to have the pink frock. Which one did you like? What about the one with the cherries? With the embroidered collar? Shall we try that one on? I don't want a frock at all. No one wears them anymore. I see, said Mum, meaning she didn't. So everyone goes out in their vest and knickers, is that right? No, girls wear shorts. Mum snorted. If you think I'm going to let you wander around wearing shorts like Tanya, then you've got another thing coming. I don't mean just Tanya, I said, though I did. All the girls in my class wear shorts and jeans and leggings. Yes, well, I don't think you suit that sort of style, said Mum. I want to suit it, though. I want to look like the others. That's why they keep picking on me, because I'm different, I wailed. That made Mum waver a bit, so I kept it up. And in the end, she bought me a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. Long shorts. Pink. But at least they were shorts. She bought me a new swimming costume, too. Dad and I go swimming every Sunday morning. I begged for a bikini. I thought that way I could wear the bikini top with my shorts. I knew that would look great. But Mum laughed at me. A bikini? Honestly, Mandy, you're as straight up and down as an ironing board. She bought me a boring little girl costume. She couldn't pick pink again because they didn't come in that colour. I wanted bright orange, but Mum said it was too loud. She chose a blue costume with a silly little white bow at the front and 2 buttons in the shape of white rabbit heads. You look so sweet, said Mum, trying hard to pretend we were having a lovely time after all. Mum wasn't even cross when I showed her my broken pen. We went down to Maxwell's stationery department, and Mum bought me a new ink pen and matching propelling pencil. I was desperate to go home right away after the shopping spree, but Mum wanted me to have a treat at the soda fountain. So we went there and I chose a cherry special, and I sucked cherries and licked cream and churned the ice cream around and round in the silver dish because somehow it didn't taste right. Tanya was waiting for me when we got back home at long last. She was perched on the little picket fence round our garden. Mum sighed as I sped ahead. I don't think that fence is really strong enough to sit on, Tanya, Mum called. Yeah, it's not very comfy, said Tanya, getting up and rubbing the red ridges on her thighs. Hey, what are all these carrier bags? Have you been getting presents, Mandy? You lucky thing. Oh, how I wished we'd bought Tanya a present, especially when she'd given me the green hairband. Here, we've got your little present, Tanya, I said quickly, and I snatched the propelling pencil out of its bag and gave it to her. Mum raised her eyebrows, but she didn't say anything. Oh, wow, a present for me, a pencil, oh, great. I've never had one of those posh propelling ones before. Thanks ever so, said Tanya, and she kissed me. She even reached up and kissed Mum. Right, so what have you got, eh? Tanya said, delving in the bags. Oh, they're lovely, she said, holding up my new t-shirt and shorts. Mum looked surprised but pleased. What do you mean, lovely? I muttered to Tanya. You wouldn't wear them. Yes, but they'll look great on you, said Tanya. Thanks, I said, giving her a little push. And what else have you got, said Tanya, rooting in the other bags. Oh, a pen like my pencil. And what's this? Just a swimming costume. Let's see. Oh, I like the little bunnies. I squinted at her through my glasses, still not sure whether she was acting or not. Can you swim then, Mandy? Oh, yes. Mandy goes swimming with her father every Sunday, said Mum, fussing with the clothes, folding them back into their bags. Come on, Mandy, indoors. We must get tea. Did your dad teach you to swim, Mandy? Will he teach me? Can I come on Sunday too? Oh, yes, I said joyfully. We'll see, said Mum. I knew what we'll see meant. It was a polite way of saying no, but Dad seemed keen on the idea. Yes, of course young Tanya can come along too, he said. I whooped triumphantly. I'm not sure that's such a good plan, Mum called from the kitchen. That Tanya is starting to tag around after Mandy everywhere. She doesn't tag. I'm the one who tags around after her, I insisted. Now, calm down, Mandy, said Mum, coming into the hall in her apron. Goodness, let Daddy change his work clothes and get comfy first, before you start pestering him. We'll discuss the swimming later on. There's nothing to discuss, Mum. Dad said yes, I said. He went on saying yes, even though Mum tried hard to make him change his mind. I know you seem to have taken such a shine to Tanya, but I'm really worried about her. I've been talking to Mrs. Williams, and Tanya comes from a really dreadful background. Mum started whispering to Dad. I tried to hear. I kept waiting for the word thief. Dad saw me biting my lip. Yes, OK, poor old Tanya. It sounds as if she's had a really tough time, said Dad. Shouldn't we try to be extra kind to her then? Show her what life in a normal, loving family is like? She seems a surprisingly nice girl, considering, and very fond of our Mandy. So where's the harm in their friendship? You keep saying Tanya might be a bad influence on Mandy. Have you ever thought that Mandy might be a good influence on Tanya? I punched the air in triumph. Dad had beaten Mum well and truly. So we went swimming on Sunday. Dad and Tanya and me. Tanya didn't seem quite so keen on the idea at first. We called for her at 7:30, and Mrs. Williams said she was still in bed, though she'd called her twice. Tanya appeared 10 minutes later, white-faced and yawning, her orange hair sticking up on end. It was the first time I'd ever seen her without makeup. She looked astonishingly different, much younger, softer, more easily hurt. Dad had been getting irritable, hanging about waiting for her, but now he smiled. "Morning, Tanya." "Morning. It feels like it's still the middle of the night," she said, but she smiled back at Dad, and then she stuck out her tongue at me. "What are you staring at, eh?" She rubbed her strangely bare eyes and combed her hair with her fingers. "I look a sight, don't I?" "I think you look lovely," I said. I thought Tanya would probably have a bikini, but when she changed at the baths, she put on an old faded navy costume, plain and ordinary. "I haven't got my own costume. This was Mrs. Williams' daughter's school thingy. Isn't it foul? Look, there are all these little holes." Tanya poked at them with her finger. "I'm going to get arrested for indecency." "It looks fine," I insisted. "I'm the one who looks an idiot." I tweaked my bow and the stupid bunny heads. "You look cute," said Tanya. She sounded wistful. "You're lucky. Your mum doesn't half spoil you. Doesn't she come swimming too?" I looked at Tanya. We both had a mental image of my mum in a tight bathing costume. We grinned guiltily. "Perhaps not," said Tanya. We stowed our clothes in the same locker. I liked it that my new t-shirt and shorts were curled up with Tanya's top and leggings. I had to leave my glasses behind too. It's always so strange taking them off. The whole world mists over and disappears in the distance. I have to half feel my way to the swimming pool, and all I can see is brilliant sparkling blue. "Here, I'll help you," said Tanya, and she held my hand tight. "Where's your dad?" "Oh, there he is, standing on the ledge." "Hey, are you going to dive?" She hurried us over to him, our bare feet pattering on the damp tiles. "Bet you can't dive," she said. "Bet I can," said Dad, just like a schoolboy, and then he dived in and swam away, his arms smoothly dipping through the water, his pointed feet kicking, until I lost him in the turquoise blur. "Hey, he can! What an old show-off, eh?" said Tanya, laughing at him. Dad was laughing too when he swam back. He pulled himself up onto the side and sat kicking his legs, little beads of water shining all over him. I was worried about his soft fat tummy and all the hairs on his chest, grey hairs, but Tanya seemed to think he was some sort of super dad. "Hey, show me how to dive. You're great at it. And I want to swim all smooth like that too. I just splash." She kept on, but she took ages and ages, actually getting into the water herself. Dad had to hold her hands and coax her down the steps. I jumped in. Then, even after Tanya was in the water, she wouldn't duck down and get her shoulders wet. She stood shivering with her arms wrapped around herself, and when Dad tried to show her how to swim, the crawl, Tanya wasn't sure she could do it, and remembered she had an ear infection and maybe she shouldn't get her head wet. Dad didn't try and make her do anything. We played bouncing on the water instead. Just Dad and me at first, but then we caught hold of Tanya's hand and she bounced too. She shrieked ever so loudly to begin with, but then she started liking it and laughing. "We're the Bouncy family," she said, as we did a mad ring a roses. She sang, "We are the Bouncy family. There's Mandy's dad and Mandy and me." We all sang Tanya's song over and over, whirling around in the blue water. "I wish we were really a proper family," I said. "I'd give anything to have you as my sister, Tanya." "Yeah, you're like my little sister now," said Tanya, "and we'll always stay together, and no one shall ever split us up. Right?" And that is the end of part 4 of Bad Girls by Jacqueline Wilson. I'll be back soon with the next part of this fantastic story and lots more stories and videos coming your way very soon. If you'd like to subscribe or hit a like, that's always appreciated. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.